So what I just showed you there was a quick, how I just did my first layer of resin, just a thin layer on the background. Now what I'm doing for this before I start laying on slices and cutting slices is deciding what cutter will fit around my pumpkin and how big I want to do this. So, you know, I could potentially use, because again I'm going to cut off this translucent, I could potentially use something like that. But that won't give me much background visibility, which may or may not be a good thing. This is the one I already used. Okay, I could use this shape. Just kind of offset teardrop. I could use that shape. That might give me a nice amount of the background. I could just use a basic bold, this is a fat teardrop shape. I don't really like wearing that shape as much. This one might be fun. Kind of reminds me of a witch's hat or a pumpkin with a hat on, or one of those candies that are like orange and brown and white. I can't think of the name of it right now. One of those Halloween candies. So maybe I'll use this one. Why not? So what I'm going to do is just kind of score where I want this. I don't want too much orange showing because of the pumpkin is orange itself. So I think I might go on this darker red side, and I can use the other side for something else. So I'm just going to gently score, and that way I know how much to lay on. See that there? And then if I was going to cut this excess off, I would just leave myself some room, though, not cut it all off. And then I can use this for something else. You guys know I like to use my scraps, so this is where I will be applying my veneer onto. And again, I'm going to do this in kind of a fast-forwarded version because we're laying on a square veneer like I've already laid on a square veneer in this tutorial. So that's not really any different, it's just a different veneer. It's also a lot smaller, so I may have to, I don't know, we'll see how I lay it on. Remember, the design, if you start in the center, the design's only going to show where the pumpkin is not, because the pumpkin will cover it up. So I may make the design up here a little bit. You know, lay 4 slices more up towards the top, and then lay more slices down here, so I get a pattern that way. I don't know. I'll have to figure it out. I might just lay them on and not go that picky with it, you know? You can kind of do whatever you want. That's the whole point of this, is to just give you inspiration to do whatever you want. You know, you don't have to follow exactly what I do. It's more what you want. So I'm going to begin cutting slices, again in a fast-forwarded version, and I'll lay them on. And then I'll be back when I'm going to cut my pumpkin. So this is actually the first time I've actually laid this cane out together. Other than that end cane piece here in my book, that's an end cane. So it didn't quite obviously match. This is the first time I've laid it out together. I don't know how it'll bake up. We'll see. I hope the pattern will look a little cool, but it is a little small. I should have left it a little bigger so it showed up more, but again, we're going to be covering 90% of this. So some of you would think, oh, you should have put the striped border here. I didn't want too much striped border on the end of this, which is why I flipped these that way. I didn't want to put the border against the border right there because it was going to be a lot of stripe. Again, you can line it up so it's super, super perfect if you want to. I'm not overly worried about that because I'm going to lay the pumpkin on 90% of this too. So what I'm going to do now that I have it all burnished out the same way we burnished everything, is I'm going to decide where my cutter is going to go. And if I can help it, I don't want the seam on anything right where I'm going to drill a hole. But luckily we set this on some backing, so it's not like dire. This would be a pretty pendant on its own, you know. Obviously not with this cutter, but this would be a pretty pendant on its own. Just this cane. I'm just trying to decide what I want showing around the pumpkin. Maybe I should cut the pumpkin out, and then I can lay the pumpkin on there and then decide. So I'm going to take a slice of the pumpkin. Now the other thing I need to decide is, do I want to use the little pumpkin or the big pumpkin? So maybe I'll take a slice of both, and then I'll fussy cut them both and then decide. Now I haven't sliced this one yet, so hopefully I can get a good first slice, but maybe not. I am using my new blade. This is what I was waiting for a slicer for, is to cut these out. It's a little thinner at the top, but might be a little too thin. Okay, now I got more of an even slice. Let's see if I can get a better one now that the beginning started. It seemed to cut easier from this direction. And I'd rather, sorry, my dog's chewing his bone. I'd rather leave it slightly thicker because I can always sand it down. Okay, so there's one. Now let me cut one out from the other so I can decide what one I want to use. Now off camera, yesterday, I cut one slice and it came out fine. But with the camera on my face, it really, really throws me off. That one got really thin, which isn't a bad thing for a cane, but got a little too thin for this, what I want for this. I am going to cut this a little thicker if I can help it. Okay. And then you can push it and pull it any direction you want. I would do that now a little bit if you want to shape it a little differently. Let me pick up some of my canes so I can cut these out, because I know you guys can't see my whole table right now, but my table's kind of messy, or I got all these canes laying on it. So let me cut out or move this stuff and I'll be right back. Okay, so I'm just going to use my craft knife. You can use any, you can use a pointed one. I have these rounded ones, and I think that one's my sharper one, so I'm going to use that. And I'm going to cut them both out, and pretty much it's just fussy cutting out the translucent, or the translucent away from the edge. So, you know, go slow because I made this cane, what, 2 weeks ago? So it's going to be a little stiffer. So you're better off just taking straight cuts than going around the edges, because I found it was tearing when I was, you know, dragging it along like this. So I'm better off taking straight cuts and taking my translucent off. Like that. And if anything, I'd rather bevel it in. Again, the camera's in my face, so this does make it harder than when I did it without the camera in my face. You could lay this on a piece of parchment and then you could spin it around, or maybe I'll even get a tile. Oh, dropped my blade, hang on. I'm gonna clean my tile off a little bit, make sure it's clean. It might be easier just to set it on a tile, and then I can spin it around. Let me just set that one there so I don't bump it. And this way I can kind of just spin it a little easier. Now I do want to show my pumpkin segments. So pretty much you just got to get it all off. And this one I'll do, and then the other one I'll fast forward through. And this you can also modify your shape. You know, you can, which I'll show you in a minute. This is what I did first when I wasn't on camera, so let me just do it how I did it. I wish you could reduce shapes, and you can reduce certain shapes and keep them fairly similar, but not all shapes without distorting your design if you don't put translucent in. So, and a lot of times I don't cut off my translucent. Now if you can get your design, like my flowers, a lot of times I can get them overlapping enough where I have a full layer of translucent covering. Sorry, the camera's in my way and the light's not showing me what is pumpkin and what is translucent. But if I were to lay this on, I would see all of this, and then where the translucent wasn't would show my background clearly, and it would just look funny. So if you're going to fussy cut it off, if you're going to cut your translucent off, I recommend doing it good. Doing a good job at it, taking your time at it, or just leave it on. Now I work in sections like that. I found it easier, and I got less splitting of the clay because I didn't just make this cane. But if you just made it, and this is Pardo, so it's a little stiffer because it's cold, but if you just made it, you could probably just drag your blade around. Also, if you let it warm, you could just drag your blade. But I'm going to do it this way to prevent less tearing of it. Sorry, my fiance is listening to a video down here, so if you're hearing noises in the background, that's what it is. He can't not. I'm down here for hours making these videos, so it is what it is. Can't be like, babe, you can't be down here for 4 hours at night after work just because I'm recording a video for people. You can't be in your own basement because I'm recording a video for people on YouTube. You know, that'd be stupid. And you can design your stem as well to be however you want to be. Now you could make sure you got no color in this translucent, like cut off the white, and then, you know, to make sure you can keep it, but I'm only getting tiny little bits, so I'll use that for something, I'm sure. I could add alcohol inks to it, I could do all kinds of things. Chalks. Or chalk pastels. See, it's hard when people say pastel, some people think oil pastels, so they're chalks. They're chalk pastels. Because there are also soft oil pastels as well. And you don't want to use those with clay. No oil with clay. So once it's mostly cut out, then what I'll do is pick it up. I'll take my a needle or a needle tool or whatever. First I can pat down any sharp areas with my fingers. And I don't mind that one just boop like that. I really don't. Pumpkins are organic, so I might as well try to leave any. So you can pat your edges down. You know, and take your time with this and make sure this looks good, because once you glue it on there, it's kind of stuck on there and it's very hard to refine your edges. Also, I want to see the segments here, so I'm just rolling in with my needle tool. I'm trying to angle it so I can see it. See how that edge is pointy right there? Round that off, see? That's why I left it slightly thicker. It's probably, I wouldn't say a 0 on my pasta machine, but definitely like a 1 or a 2 on my pasta machine. But again, I'll sand it down later and get it a little thinner. And even if I had a Lucy clay slicer, I would have left it a little thicker. It would have just been more even, because you can see here's thinner than down here, you know. But I still would have left a thicker slice so I could fussy cut out the translucent, because I don't want that kind of look on this. I really don't. I'm not going to mess with the stem too much because it's pretty organic. And it can be whatever shape it wants to be. So I'm going to do the same thing with the other one. Again, I'm going to do it in a fast-forwarded version because it literally is the same exact thing I just did here. Okay, so we went from a full slice to that. I'll lay that on the other tile. I'm going to do the same thing with this one, and then we can decide what we want to put on the piece or not. Okay, so now that I have them both cut out, okay, and when I made the shadow, I don't know if I said this in the pumpkin tutorial, but the shadow that I put in here, just to show you how, goes towards the dark side, because the light's shining from over here. The shadow would be on the opposite. You wouldn't put the shadow where the light is, if that makes sense. Oops. But you could also cut the shadow off at this point too. I just put it on there to show you how to do it, but it doesn't mean you couldn't cut this off. I may leave it. I may decide to cut it off. I think I might decide to cut it off, because I was going to eventually do one that overlaps. So which one's the shadowed side? This one. I eventually am going to do one like this, was my goal, but I'm not doing that today. So I may quickly just cut that off. But it was something I wanted to show you that you could do with this slightly translucent black. Make yourself a shadow. When I at least did the cane, I wanted to show you that. You can create shadows with things just like I would in an oil painting or an acrylic painting. Well, I don't do acrylic paintings, but in oil painting or in pyrography or wood burning, I would create shadows. Or in a charcoal drawing. Okay. So now I kind of need to decide on what one I want to put on here. So I can just set it on my scalpel and just kind of lay it and say, hey, is that too busy if I put this pumpkin on? Or should I put the taller one on? And then it blocks some of that pattern. Might actually look cool like that, where it goes right at the bottom of that. Okay, let me see. If I take my cutter, can't see the lights glaring a lot. Yeah, maybe I'll do something like that. Why not? So, if I can get this back off, I do not want to leave this on here because I want to sand this background. So, what I will now do, that it's mostly burnished down, is cut out where I think I'm going to go. And yes, you can see the seams, but it's actually really smooth. So yes, you can see seams still, but it's actually quite smooth. And when I sand that, you really won't be able to see much of it, especially once you resin. And you can try to buff out your seams, but your pattern gets more distorted the more buffing you do. And like I said, most of this is going to be covered up by the pumpkin. That's going to be covered up by the pumpkin. I'm not worried about that at all. Vermont friend says it really bugs her when people don't burnish well, so this is for you, Judy. Because I'm not that overly picky when it comes to clay. I am a very type A personality, but when it comes to clay, this is my nighttime relaxing. What time is it now? It's 10:11, so I've been down here since 8 working on this, making a video for this. And now it's a little after 10 p.m. See, it's like, do I want more of the bottom showing or do I want more of the top part showing above the pumpkin? I think I'm going to do more like that. Well, I got to choose at some point, so I'm going to do it. And this is on my tile I'm going to bake on, so I don't have to pick this up. All I have to pick up is this stuff. Don't throw these scraps away. These would make awesome beads, lentil beads and stuff. You roll that up, or even mishmash it together like you would like a watercolor technique. Might look cool. And then this, at some point, will go on like that. Oh, don't stick, don't stick. Almost stuck. Maybe a little like that is what I'm thinking. But again, I want to sand this background. So this is going to go in the oven. And because I'm going to bake it again, I'll probably bake it for 40 minutes. And then I can sand and quick buff this background. And then I'll add the pumpkin on, just like we did the other pumpkin, because you've seen from here on out. The only thing you didn't see was fussy cutting. So I'll add the pumpkin on. I'll sand the pumpkin down. And I'll add a layer of resin. My other one's still in the resin because I used Easy Dome. Or it's still in the oven because I used the Easy Dome, so it takes forever. And it says a half hour, but I don't think a half hour is enough for that resin. At least in my tiny Pandora light. This one I did a top coat of the Decor ROM, so it does have a little distortion. And I don't know what happened here. I must have bumped it. I got a little wave. So it's slightly distorted, but again, I don't mind that. I actually kind of, it makes it shine more because the center's kind of tucked in. So that one I can put a bail on. Now, because I didn't get the best resining on this, because I did 2 coats and I got a weird ripple there, which is me being nitpicky, this one will be mine. The one I made yesterday that I showed you turned out really nice, so that one would be like one I'd give to someone. So I'm going to get this up in the oven, 275 for about, what did I say, 45 minutes. And then when that's done, I will be back. Well, I'll add the pumpkin with the bacon bond. I'll be back after I get to the point where I'm resining. Okay, so this one needs one more layer of resin. I just got it barely up to the pumpkin edge, but I can feel the pumpkin a little bit. So I'm going to add one more layer. Again, I'm using the RJ Crafts Easy Dome, so that's why it's got smears all over it. This is the other one that came out of the oven, and I just have to sand it off now to get it even. And then we'll apply, it's not as translucent as I hoped, but it's not too bad. And it's really not all about the backing. And then we'll apply one of the pumpkins on, and then I'll begin sanding that down as well. So anyways, I am gonna keep moving on. I just wanted to show you kind of where I'm at. That's in the oven, and this is the first layer of resin on this guy. Now, obviously it's not, if I can flip it, it's not covering the pumpkin yet, but it's getting up there. So I'm going to add another thin layer. until I get it up to the top where it can cover the pumpkin. Now this, like I said, gets smeary. This frickin' RJ Crafts resin, it smears pretty. You just touch it and it smears. But I'll clean that with alcohol, and then I'll apply another layer. Now when I'm torching to get my air bubbles out, I am going very, very lightly because I don't want to burn my polymer clay. Okay, so I'm using a small flame and doing it quick, which I may not get out every single bubble, but I'd rather have a minor tiny bubble than have burn my clay, because it's just going to be within the layers you're going to have a bubble. It's not going to be on the top. The top layer will be covering the pumpkin. So I need it to come around the pumpkin. So I'm going to add another thin layer just like I did the first time, and then cure it for another 40 or 50 minutes, and then add another layer and gradually build it up. And I will do the same thing to the other one. When the other one's out of the oven, the back, I'll sand the back, buff the back, or the backing, I should say, both sides, front and back of that other one. And then I will take the pumpkin and apply it with the bacon bond, and I will bake it for a full hour at 275 or whatever your temperature is for the clay you're using. And then I will sand and buff the pumpkin, and then I'll start applying resin just like I'm doing to this one. Now, don't throw away your scraps, because I love scraps. I am a big scrap fan. Like, look at this scrap. That would make a pretty cabochon or something. I don't know. They're just neat, or a cool backing. You know, you could stretch that out and put that on one of these backings. One of these pendants, you know, that would make a cool backing. Why does a backing need to be a solid color? Why can't it be fun too? So, anyways, I don't throw those out. I eventually use those. So I'm going to keep resining, and probably tomorrow, because it's 10:30, I will probably tomorrow night work more on this project. Okay. So I've sanded and buffed the background just like we did the other one. And I just put bacon bond on the pumpkin, and I'm ready for the final bake on this one, and then I will start resining it. I just wanted to show you kind of where I laid it. I know one side's wider than the other, but that's just the design of the pendant I chose. But I think if it hangs like this, and you see how translucent that is, these are going to be awesome. See that? Beautiful. Love that. That would be a cool design on a candle. Maybe I'll do that. I have a candle holder I could use. Or maybe I'll go to the dollar store and get one. That would be an awesome cane for a candle holder. Okay, so my first pendant is done being resined. Completely done. You can kind of see a little right there in the light, but I can't feel it, so I'm okay with that. So now we need to apply the drill a hole, put a jump ring, and a bail. This is the second one I made. And this cane on a background like this with the Pardo, actually I don't even know if this is Pardo. This was the red one I made. I think this might be regular Primo translucent with alcohol inks that I tinted. But this black lace cane I made, let me see if I can get this up to the light. Okay, I'm going to take it off the stand. Hang on a sec. That would be awesome. That's why I don't back it, because if you lean over a little bit and a little light can catch the back of that, I love that. Let's see. That one's got the blue behind it. Hang on. So you can kind of see the blue showing through. That's what that has behind it. I'm trying to get it to focus, but it won't really focus. But that's why you can see the light through it, is because I don't back them. So anyways, now I need to drill the hole. So I have a hand drill like this. The end does rotate, and that way you can set it in your palm and just twist your fingers, and you don't have to twist your wrists the whole time like you would a screwdriver. By unscrewing the head right here on this type, it opens the chuck right here. So you close it, the chuck's going to get smaller. You open it, it's going to get bigger, okay? The smaller drill bits obviously need to start off smaller. I've seen people that go right to the bigger ones. I've had pieces crack, more when I was using like Sculpey 3, but anyways, I always start with a smaller one just to be safe. You know, I put days into this piece and I don't want to happen to crack it if I can help it. I mean, God forbid it does, but I do drill after resining, one, so the resin doesn't go through the hole, and I do sand and buff before I resin, and that way you just get a better finish. If there's lumps and bumps under your resin, you still may be able to see them. So you're going to pick a spot where you want to drill, and sometimes it's easier just to look at the back and decide from the back side than the front side. It kind of depends on your piece. If you have two different veneers, like one on one half, one on the other, it might throw you off on the center. So usually what I'll do is I'll kind of spin it around from different directions. You don't want to be too close to the edge, but you know, that's going to take experience. And then I'll push into the resin and make a little divot, and then I'll take a peek at that and see if I'm fairly okay with that. It's hard to get it perfect. We are human, so I'll stand it up so you can see. It's harder to do this standing up. It's easier to do this laying down, but it makes it harder for you to see. And then it's actually pretty easy to drill through resin. So again, start in your smaller one. Now the other thing that I have said before, and I'm going to say again, when you're getting closer through, watch your finger, because with these skinny ones you can poke yourself. Now I do usually leave it flat on the table, generally, and then I can drill straighter myself. I find I can keep an eye on it and make sure it's going straighter than when I'm holding it up. And then it's going to push through the back like that. Now when you get close to the end with this metal part on the driller, if you push it all the way up against your pendant, you may scuff your resin, so try not to do that. Okay, and then I'm going to flip it around, and I'm going to go from the other side just to neaten this hole up from the other side. Okay, and then I'll unscrew this, take it out, put my next size up, and now that we already have a hole going, it's fairly easy just to widen it. So I'm going to go up to my biggest size that I use, and again, that's going to take your, oh, Daddy just got home. Daddy just got home. So that's going to take practice on your own end to see what size your clay can handle, what size gauge jump rings you have, all that kind of stuff. The thickness of your pendant will also determine what jump ring you need to use, which will determine what gauge you have. You know, there's a lot of factors, and you're going to have to kind of know that yourself and play with that. Those things I can't answer. You're just going to, it's going to depend on many factors. The size of your hole, how far away from the edge you drilled it, you know, the diameter of your jump rings. Are they 6 millimeter, 7 millimeter, 10 millimeter? Are they 21 gauge, 18 gauge? All of that's going to make a difference, and that's really just going to depend on the supplies you have as well. And the type of clay you're using or resin will depend how close to the edge you can get, and knowing that you won't crack it. Now I haven't cracked one in a long time, and I do drill fairly close to the edge. Okay. Now this is a pretty thick layer of resin as well. You know, it's a pretty thick layer now, because we had to bulk up to go around the pumpkin, but you can't even really tell the pumpkin is raised anymore. It's kind of neat how it did that compared to here, where you can totally tell the pumpkin is coming off the thing. And that one I'll finish and I'll show it to you. We're going to do the same thing. So this one, I'm going to do this kind of tarnished silver one. I do tend to wear more silver. And that's kind of a bright silver jump ring. What if I use a blacker jump ring? Yeah. So we're going to use any kind of plier. I like these bent nose pliers from Beadalon. I actually got them at my craft store, a set of one, and then I liked it so much I ordered, and I have a bunch of different ones, but I liked it, this size so much I ordered another one off Amazon. It was like $8, but they fit my hand really well. So when you're opening a jump ring, you would think, so the opening's up here at the top, you would think to grab it like this, but actually if you can put more of your plier touching it, the less you're going to torque it and bend it the wrong way. So actually grab it like that, and you're going to not pull it apart, you're going to twist it front to back to open a jump ring. Definitely check out some chainmail videos. I'm going to slide it through. Let's see if this one will fit. This is a 6mm. Yep, it did go. Wasn't sure how it would fit with the thickness of the resin, because the pendant itself is not very thick, but the resin's quite thick. Spin around. We're going to slide our bail on. Grab it, twist back, close. And then you can spin your seam to be inside, but most likely it's going to spin around on you. Okay, so that one's done. And then I will resin this guy, and then I'll show you when that one's done. And then I think we'll be done with this tutorial, finally. This has taken me, it's now started what, Saturday making the canes. Sunday I started the video. It is now Wednesday night after work. So this has been an all week project. And here's the last one. I think it's gonna look cool. Just have to drill the hole and put the bail on it. Looks really cool with the light going through it, that's for sure. My pumpkin got a little wonky in the upper right, but, you know, who says a pumpkin can't have a little lump like that, right? It could be one of those, like, wart kind of dimples they have. Whereas on my other one, sorry, yes, it's my makeup and stuff. On my other one, I smoothed that out on that one. Well, actually, I kind of got a dimple over there on that one. But either way, you know, that's up to you how much you want to fussy cut it. But I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. I know it was a little longer. Most of them are, but we did make 4 different pendants, I think it was. Quite a few different pendants. We made this one. We made the plain black one. If I can grab it. We also made this one. 2 of these. So anyways, if this tutorial was helpful for you, it may be helpful for someone else. So please like, share, subscribe. I want to say I have not been ignoring people's comments. I just realized last night at like 12:30 at night that a lot of comments were being held for review. And I don't know why. And I got to figure out how to get it off. So like 90% of everybody's comments weren't going through, and I do not know why. So it was like 2:30 before I went to bed, approving them, because I felt so bad. I felt so guilty. I was like, I can't not. And then replying to them. Ugh. So if I haven't replied, please write me another question. Facebook, if you want a link, because it takes forever to post links on all the videos, and I really don't have the time for it. If you want a specific link, go to my Facebook page. It's the best place to contact me. Plus, a lot of the other girls on there already have the links, and if I'm at work, they may respond for me. So or I've already posted things for like my buffing wheels, my sander things. I've already posted links for that kind of stuff already. The new cutter shapes, these new cutter shapes from Metal Clay Studio on Etsy, I posted that. So yeah, anyways, I will see you guys next time. Later.